In this video, we're going to look at another layer of compression. This time, it's a compressor that's on a group of tracks. So I have this drum group here, right? And if I solo my folder track, you'll hear just drums. There you go. If we look at this group a little more carefully, you'll see that we have 2 kick mics, 2 snare mics, a hat mic, 3 toms, a stereo overhead track, and then this sort of drum room track that is not that great, but it's in there. We also have this drums VCA master. I'm leaving that in. I don't usually use VCAs. They're not a typical part of my workflow because I'm not doing like loads of automation. But if I were like more pro at this, I probably would. But I'm keeping it in because it was part of an earlier instructional video, showing the VCA masters. It can't hurt to have it in. I have all of these tracks included in this drums folder. And then that drum folder track is included within the submix master folder. And then next to that, there is a stereo master fader track. So we do have compressors on these 2 folder tracks. And so this is called bus compression or serial compression. It's called serial because it's in series, right? There are compressors on each individual track of the drum set. And then after that, we have this compressor that's on the group. So these compressors come first, then this one, and then actually this one, and then this one. Lots of compressors in series, serial compression. This is also called bus compression, and I'm just putting a compressor on the folder track, and I'm using BF76. Let's take a look at this compressor because it's simple. It looks simple. It's very, very, very easy to misuse. I'm not sure I understand it 100% myself, but I will share what I know about it. So the BF76 from Bomb Factory is based on the legendary Universal Audio 1176 compressors, and there's a bunch of clones and knockoffs and copies out there now. But it has 2 main knobs, right? Input and output. So this input is like the threshold kind of on another type of compressor, like the Pro compressor or Dyne 3. It's kind of like threshold. It's kind of not though. It adjusts the incoming signal into this compressor. And then the output control is kind of like makeup gain, but not exactly. And it adjusts the outgoing level. And of course, the difference between those 2 is what is giving us the compression. Now it says peak limiter, and I believe this was originally designed to be a peak limiter, but we're using it in a different way here. The attack and release times are definitely worth talking about on the BF76 because most compressors, the attack and release times are in like time values, right? Like 50 milliseconds or 1 second. And so when you turn a knob all the way to the left, it's usually faster, and all the way to the right slower. But the BF76 is different. These are not time values. These are settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 is actually really fast, and 1 is much slower. But the thing is, this is a very fast compressor in general. So if you have it at a slow setting, even for drums, that's okay. Like the way we're using it on a bus, on a grouped track, on a folder track, instead of on the individual drum track, is kind of a common way to do it. But if you set this to 7, thinking, oh, it's drums, so I want to have a fast attack, it's too fast. The release, I have it set pretty fast. There are ratio buttons here. You can have 4, 8, 12, or 20. If I press the shift key, and if I hold the shift key down and press one of the buttons, we go to all-in mode. And this adds them together. So what is this, like a 44-to-1 ratio? I'm not sure how exact that is, but it's a lot stronger than just, what we're using it for right now, the 4-to-1 ratio. Again, that is shift and then click any of the knobs. The meter here can show different things. We're using it to show gain reduction, which is what I usually do. You can also set it to be off or to be like a regular VU meter at either -18 or -24 decibels, but we're going to stick to gain reduction. So those are the settings. Let's look at how to use this, because as I said, you can easily misuse BF76. So here it is with no compression on that bus. And here it is with it. So immediately you could hear that those drums leapt out a lot more. And we're only getting about -1 decibels of compression. That's because I've set my input and output carefully. I've set my attack and release carefully. I'm using a gentle, like very weak ratio here of 4:1. I'm not looking to totally smash these drums. I'm just looking for a little bit more presence. They're already compressed at the track level, so I don't need to slam them at the subgroup level. And as a matter of fact, if I didn't do the compression and the EQ right here, and setting the volume faders pretty low, then it would sound like garbage here, right? Because if you're feeding too much into it, or if the frequencies are out of balance and there's some bands that are way too loud, then this is going to do its job. It's going to limit those peaks, and it'll start to sound real choppy. One of the most common problems with all of these compressors, but particularly the BF76, is setting the input knob too low or the output knob too low, and then it just gets quiet, or having too strong of a compression ratio and it just gets quiet. So you can actually make your track a lot quieter with the BF76. So you have to set it carefully to not do that. After the BF76, we have this submix master track, and the entire mix is going through it. A superstition ain't the way. And if I disable these two plugins, the BF2A and Pro Limiter, let's see what happens. And then I'll put them back in partway through. A superstition ain't the way. Again, another bump up in presence. Another bump up in presence there. And it just makes it a little shinier. Here's the limiter. A superstition ain't the way. So with the BF2A, this is another leveling amplifier from Bomb Factory, and it's based on the LA2A. Again, just two main knobs here, a gain control and a peak reduction. I'm not looking to get a lot of compression out of this, just a hair. I also do like the sort of tone that it gives to the overall mix. We can set the meter to look at output or gain reduction. And finally, there's a switch here to switch it between compressor and limiter. I have it set to compressor because I have a limiter after this. A superstition ain't the way. You can see the needle's barely moving, but it is making a difference. A superstition ain't the way. There's just something about it. So now we come to the Pro Limiter. I'm going to do another video on the Pro Limiter, but just know that it is the last compressor in the chain here. And so that's what bus compression or serial compression is all about. You have track level compression, group level compression, submix, like the whole mix level compression, and then finally going into a limiter. I like to put my limiter on the submix master, and if I don't need to put it on my master fader, then I won't, and that's because the inserts on a master fader are post fader inserts, and the ones in the submix and like a folder track are pre-fader. It's a difference. Also note that I do have the master fader down pretty far, and the reason for that is because of the software I'm using for this tutorial video. Normally you would want the master fader like at straight 0 and just kind of keep it there, but if I have it at that high, there's something about this streaming software I'm using, Loopback, it just like really crushes the audio level. So I'm keeping it down, but just keep in mind that normally that's at 0. Let's see what this sounds like with the limiter and without it, and then you can check out more details about the limiter in the next video. A superstition ain't the way. Hey. So there you have it.